United with Christ. Meet local churches with open doors serving throughout the Border Valley community and sharing the truth and hope of God's love and salvation. A presentation by KSCE Channel 38 Christian Television. And now, United with Christ.
Shalom, L'Shana Tova. We have a saying, that we say right after the New Year, right after Yom Teruah. L'Shana Tova Tekatevu. Okay, we kind of shortened it down to L'Shana Tova, which means basically Happy New Year, but also may you be sealed for a good year. Okay, so that's what we say. So may you all be sealed, all watching, for a good year. And for those of you who are already sealed to Messiah, may you have a blessed year. Okay, we're going to read right now. We're going to start off reading out of Leviticus 23, 33 to 36, and 39 to 43. And we're going to start talking about the Feast of Tabernacles today. Okay, verse 33. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of the 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days to the Lord. On the first day there shall be a holy gathering or rehearsal, and you shall do no customary work on it. For 7 days shall be an offering made by fire to the Lord. On the 8th day you shall have a holy gathering or rehearsal, and you shall offer an offering made by fire to the Lord. It's a sacred assembly, and you shall do no customary work on it. Also on the 15th day of the 7th month, when you have gathered in the fruit of your land, you shall keep the feast of the Lord for 7 days." Okay, this is 39, okay? "And on the first day shall be a Sabbath rest, and on the 8th day a Sabbath rest. And you shall take for yourselves on the first day the fruit of beautiful trees, branches of palm trees, boughs of leafy trees, and willows of the brook, and you shall rejoice before the Lord your God for 7 days. You shall keep it as a feast to the Lord for 7 days of the year. It shall be a statute forever in your generations. You shall celebrate it in the 7th month. You shall dwell in booths for 7 days," or tabernacles. "All who are native Israelites shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God." Now here, for this feast, God is commanding us to rejoice in the feast. This is a very joyful feast. Okay, the appointed time of Sukkot was to be a reminder each year of when Israel traveled with God, leading them in the wilderness. It's symbolic of the kind of intimacy God desires with each of us individually and with our families. When Messiah and his bride comes, he will establish his kingdom over the earth. He will rule and reign from his throne. He will establish in Jerusalem, described in Ezekiel chapters 40 to 48 as the Millennium Temple. Those who are faithful to study, teach, and observe his appointed times, his Moedim, his cycles throughout the year, and have their faith in Yeshua the Messiah will rule and reign with him as kings and priests. Others will learn the ways of the priest and king before being made one. Now, what do we do on this feast? This is really called the Feast of the Nations because of the following scriptures. Okay, we're going to go over some scriptures about the Feast of Tabernacles. I wish I could show you some of these items, but, we're limited on time and, we're limited on space. But anyhow, maybe perhaps next year or something, I'll be able to show you these things. If God permits, if God wills it. Okay, so I just want you to understand, God wants us to rejoice on this feast, okay? And this is called the Feast of the Nations, as I just shared. The Jews are actually praying for rain for all the nations on the earth during Sukkot. And in ancient times, they sacrificed 70 bulls, a bull representing each nation. According to God, according to the scriptures, it says that there were 70 nations, a bull per nation. So you got to realize that the Jews all over the world, those who practice their beliefs, Israelites, they're praying for the non-Jews. They're praying for the Gentile nations. They're called the Goy nations. Even Israel is called a Goy, a nation. But all the nations are considered to be 70 nations, except for Israel, the 70 nations. And the Jews are praying for rain and blessing on the nations during this time. Okay? Let's look at Isaiah 66:18. For I know their works and their thoughts. It shall be that I will gather all nations and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory. See, the Feast of Tabernacles is going to be fulfilled. I just shared with you last week about Yom Kippur and how this is the coming of Messiah back to the earth with his bride to begin to set up his kingdom. But he's got to finish the wrath first. And we come in white, okay? And we take the earth. It says the kingdom, the whole earth is given to the bride, okay? So we are going to rule and reign with our Messiah, and it's going to be, this is what the Feast of Tabernacles represents, the ruling and reigning with Messiah. Now, why the different kinds of branches? Well, let's break that down, okay, in a moment, okay? Look at Isaiah 2:1-4. The word that Isaiah, the son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. Now it shall come to pass in the latter days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow to it. See, this is why it's a festival for the nations, because all the nations of the earth are going to flow into the kingdom of God. Okay, the millennium kingdom, the Messianic kingdom, the kingdom in which Messiah rules and reigns from Jerusalem, from Mount Moriah, from the temple, which is really his throne. Many people shall come, verse 3, many people shall come and say, come and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the Torah, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He shall judge between the nations and rebuke many people. They will beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nations shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. That sounds really good, doesn't it? I can't wait for the day without war. I can't wait for the days without troubles, and where he'll wipe away our tears. Zechariah 14:16-21. And it shall come to pass that everyone who is left of all the nations, now remember, that's going to be after the wrath is finished. So there's going to be a lot of destruction, okay? It says the mountains won't be able to be found. I mean, God's going to change the whole look of the entire earth. It's going to be a brand new heavens and a new earth almost. Almost a perfectly new earth. It'll still be the old earth, but completely renovated. Okay, so let me repeat that. Zechariah 14, okay, verse 16. And it shall come to pass that everyone who is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, what does that tell you? Everybody's going to keep God's appointed time. This one, yes, it just says the Feast of Tabernacles here, but it's actually going to be all of them. If you want to read about that, you can read the last verses of Isaiah chapter 66, where it talks about how every nation will come and celebrate the Sabbath and the new moon. But let's talk about the Feast of Tabernacles. And it shall be that whichever of the families of the earth do not come up to Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, on them there shall be no rain. If the family of Egypt does not come up and enter in, they shall have no rain. They shall receive the plague with which the Lord strikes the nations that do not come up to keep the Feast of the Tabernacles. This shall be the punishment of Egypt and the punishment of all the nations that do not come up to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. In that day, holiness to the Lord shall be engraved on the bells of the horses. The pots in the Lord's house shall be like the bowls before the altar. Yes, every pot in Jerusalem and Judah will be holiness to the Lord of hosts. Everyone who sacrifices shall come and take them and cook in them. And in that day, that's a term for the day of the Lord. That's the whole kingdom. There shall no longer be a Canaanite in the house of the Lord of hosts. God commanded the children of Israel to take these 4 species of trees and rejoice before the Lord in this feast for 7 days. There is a reason God chose 4 species of trees. It was the ingathering of the harvest. Fruit is the produce or reward of what we plant. It is the fruit of our labors, physically and spiritually. We strive to produce the fruit of the Spirit. John the Baptist and Yeshua talked about knowing people by their fruit. A person or a nation is like a tree, producing good fruit or bad fruit. Okay, so looking at the 4 trees, let's talk about the first one. It's called the tree that has the goodly fruit. Okay, so the beautiful goodly fruit is the word hadar. Okay, this is the meaning of it is of this fruit. Actually, it means splendor, honor. Okay, so this fruit represents splendor or honor. This is what we call an etrog. It's of the lemon family. Okay, and it's also called a citron. Okay, it's symbolic of the heart of a righteous man being perfected. We look at this fruit and inspect it for any kind of blemish, like when God inspects our heart for blemishes. Now, we take this fruit literally in our left hand and we look at it, and we make sure that there's no blemishes in it. It's yellow to green, and there shouldn't be any like brown blemishes in this fruit. Okay, and so we're like inspecting it, and it represents the heart. As we're supposed to be doing with our own hearts, is inspecting it to make sure that there's no faults in it, that there's no flaws, that we've cleansed ourselves. We have a new start. Remember, after Yom Kippur, it's a brand new start. Okay, the next tree that we're going to be talking about is the palm branches. The branches of palm trees. It's called tamar, okay, and it means to be standing erect. Okay, palms mean to be erect, standing like a palm tree. It says in Psalm 92:12, this is confidence, faith, trust, and leadership in God. It looks like a man's spine. Okay, it's a palm branch all put together tightly. Okay, and so that's the second tree that we worship with on Sukkot, or on the Feast of Tabernacles. The third one is boughs of leafy trees. They're also called the boughs of thick trees in some versions. Okay, now the thick trees are the word there is avot. Okay, avot means interwoven foliage. Okay, it's actually the myrtle branch. Okay, it's the myrtle branch, the hadas. Okay, the myrtle branch. If you look at the branches, we use 3 of these branches, and they have leaves on them, and they look like eyes. They're like little eyes. It's kind of hard to make a picture of them, but they're a bunch of leaves that look like eyes. Okay, and boughs mean to cover. It's like the covering of limbs, like we have in our bodies. We have limbs that cover us. Okay, this is the myrtle tree, and this tree is about the covering to comfort, protect, and bless Israel. The Hebrew word for myrtle means it springs, it grows rapidly, it leaps, it looks like the eyes of a man. Okay, so far we got something. The palm branch, it looks like the back of a man, or the palm branch, it looks like the spine of a man. And we have the leafy trees that look like the eyes, and we have the fruit, the beautiful fruit, which is called the etrog, and that represents the heart of a man. Okay, the last of the trees that's used to worship with, and I'm going to pull all this together for you in a moment, is the willows of the brook. I don't know if you've ever seen those trees that look kind of sad. They're kind of like leaning down. They're like this. Their leaves are like this, sort of. Okay, like leaning down like this. They're a lot longer than this, but okay. So in a moment, we'll talk a little bit about the willows, and I'll pull all this together for you and show you about how we worship on the Feast of Tabernacles. Therefore, with joy shall you draw water out of the well of salvation. Shouted my besason, mimane ha-Yeshua. Shouted my besason, mimane ha-Yeshua. My, hey my besason, my, hey my besason. Hey, Okay, that song is called Mime, if you didn't already know that. Okay, and that song is an ancient hymn. I think it's an ancient hymn. I don't know if it's more recent than ancient. So, but anyhow, it was sung by, of course, me and Barry Center. So, now I was talking about the 4 branches or 4 kinds of trees we worship with on Sukkot. Okay, the last one of the list is the willows. Okay, and that's the word arav. There's another version of the willow tree called tzafa. Okay, and it's the willows of the brook, which is nachal. Okay, now why do we need to know all this? Because it has to do with possession, to acquire an inheritance. Okay, that's the meaning. It means to overflow. See, there's meanings to all these different trees. Okay, now, one of the Hebrew words for willow is arav. It teaches us that it can grow in an arid place if it is by waters. Also, that we may have to live in places that teach us whether we like it or not. Okay, like we're going to have to live in an arid place to teach us something. See, it's okay. If we will learn to live, we can learn something wherever we're living. Okay, we can be content wherever God sends us. Look, Israel was in the wilderness. They were in the desert. Okay, and they lived in these tents, and they were always, when God's glory lifted off of the tabernacle in the wilderness, they would move. When it would settle down, they would stay. Okay, willows resemble the lips of a man. Remember I told you about them, what the leaves look like? They resemble the lips of a man. Another Hebrew word for willow is tzafa, and it teaches us that it can also grow in overflowed places. Okay, and the word is connected to tsarar, which means to cramp, adversary, afflict, besiege, bind up, distress. Okay, so even in distressing situations, this tree grows. So remember, even in distressful times, we can still be strong. We can still grow. Now, the word for brook, nachal, which I just mentioned, it's not just meaning torrent. It means, its root means to possess or inherit. Through troubles and trusting in God in arid places, we inherit and possess. And this is good. Okay. Now, to kind of put it all together, okay, the lulav, remember I shared with you, the 4 species, the lulav is the palm branch, and that represents the backbone. It's a righteous man, the back of a righteous man. Okay, and he's not moved. A palm branch can be in the middle of a storm and will not be broken. Okay? And like that, we have to be that flexible with the Lord. It's a righteous person. The leaves of the myrtle branch, the hadas, resemble the eyes of a man. It's a righteous man's eyes. Okay, and then the leaves of a willow branch resemble the lips of a man. It's a righteous man's lips. May everything that comes out of our mouth be just beautiful and wonderful. Okay, and that's what it represents. Because out of a righteous man, it's only good when he speaks in love and in truth. The etrog resembles the heart of a man. So this is Yeshua and this is his bride. We are to praise and worship him like the meaning of these 4 species. We finally can all what we were created to be. the people that we were created to be. In the kingdom, we will become everything we were created to be. We build this sukkah, this flimsy building that's put on by four. It's held up by like four corners, okay, and we put stuff around that. We hang fruit from it, okay, and it represents us. This is our temporary dwelling, but there's a promise of a permanent dwelling. Israel was in the wilderness, traveling with God. It was a temporary dwelling, but there was a promise of a permanent dwelling, and that was later when they got the land of Israel that God gave them to it. That was their permanent dwelling. Well, we all have an inheritance. We're waiting for the New Jerusalem, okay? But when the kingdom comes, that'll be even a taste. Heaven will be on earth at that time. So we will, all of us who have been resurrected, who are believers, we will be in a new body. Okay, so we'll be traveling between the New Jerusalem and heaven and on earth during his kingdom. Okay, we'll be ruling and reigning with him over this earth. But we will have no travel restrictions. As far as I know, maybe there'll be certain places we won't be able to go. I don't know. But we'll find out one way or the other, okay? But we build this fragile building, and we worship with all these things. We worship with the etrog, the heart. We worship with all these branches in our right hand, and they all teach us about a righteous man worshiping God and rejoicing before God in a flimsy building. In this flimsy flesh, in this weak flesh, we can worship and know God and prepare and get ready for his kingdom. That's what's exciting about worshiping on the festival of Sukkot, or the appointed time of Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles. Okay, there's so much to learn. There's a saying, and it comes out of Psalm 35:10. All my bones, my entire being shall say, "O God, who is like you?" To refer to the four species on the Feast of Tabernacles, each of which resemble a part of a human body, but all of which together praise God, for who is like you, O Lord? Who is like you? Okay, there's a couple scriptures I want to share with you. Okay, first of all, there's this little thing called the 8th day. Now, there's 7 days we rejoice under this tabernacle that we built. Okay, with the four species. Okay, but then there's this thing called the 8th day. It's called the 8th day conclusion, Shemini Atzeret. Okay, and on this day, we turn the Torah around. In other words, we've been reading through the Torah because there's selected portions throughout the year, and we read through, that's the 5 books of Moses. Okay, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and we go through the 5 books throughout the year, and at this point, we rewind the entire Torah back to the beginning. And then the week after Shemini Atzeret, when all the festivals are done, we then start with Genesis. We start all over. And you remember, Yeshua is the beginning and the end. He is the Aleph and the Tav. I say the Aleph and Tav because that's the first letter in the Hebrew Aleph-Bet and the last letter in the Hebrew Aleph-Bet. Okay? He knows the beginning from the end from the beginning. Okay, so on this day, why the 8th day? He calls the 8th day a special day, and it's not even the festival of Tabernacles is only 7 days, but there's a special secret 8th day. That is the New Jerusalem, because after the 7,000 years, after the day of the kingdom, the 7th day, the Shabbat, the great 1,000-year Shabbat, is going to come a timeless time. There is no time, actually. It's called the 8th day, when everything goes back to eternity again. The number 8 itself is endless, okay? So we're coming back. We're going to be coming back to those days, okay? Hebrews 11, 8-10 says, by faith Abraham obeyed when he was called to go to a place which he would receive as an inheritance, and he went out, not knowing where he was going. By faith he dwelt in a land of promise, as in a foreign country, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, and heirs with him of the same promise. For he waited for a city whose foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Okay, we have other scriptures that talk about the kingdom when death will be removed. That's in Isaiah 25, 6-8. Revelation 21, 2-7. I, John, saw the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God. There it is, like the Feast of Tabernacles. But the tabernacle of God is now with men, and he shall dwell with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them and be their God. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And there shall be no more death, no more sorrow, nor crying. There shall be no more pain, for the former things have passed away. And he who sat on the throne said, I make all things new. And he said to me, Write, for these words are true and faithful. He said, It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And I will give of the fountain of water of life freely to him who thirsts. To him who overcomes will inherit all things. And I will be his God, and he will be my people. He shall be my son. Okay. This coming Sukkot, you are welcome to come and celebrate with us and rejoice in the feast and the appointed time. We will meet Sunday evening, September 27th at our house, 7 p.m. We will have our sukkah built, and we will have the 4 species in hand to worship with them. And you can come and borrow our 4 species and worship with us, okay? Again, September 27th at 7 p.m. During the whole time of the final blood moon, our first meeting, we'll be meeting every day during the feast, but the first night is underneath the blood moon, the final blood moon of the 4 blood moons, okay? And it falls on the appointed times. This will not happen again for over 400 years. We will meet for every evening for 6 days after that. And then on Sunday evening, October 4th, starting at 7 p.m., we will observe the appointed time of Shemini Atzeret. This is a real special time, okay, for all of you to experience what joy is about. You know, God has revealed so much to us in these feasts. There's so much more to learn. There's so much more he wants to share with us. You know, I really appreciate that KSC TV has opened up the store for me to share with you. And, you know, for giving us time to talk about this. There's so much more to share. And I would like you all to come, or as many of you who are watching this, to come and visit with us. We're a humble little group. We love God. We love Yeshua. And we just want to learn, and we want you to learn with us. So come and celebrate the feast with us. You know, God wants to reveal so much to us. Come and learn and receive the treasure of Yehovah.